morning, it's Manager Critic Monday, and today's subject is about how to accept help and why independence is often overrated. So if you were with me a minute ago, I was talking to myself, I thought, and I hadn't gone live. So good morning, good morning, good morning. It's the 7th of June. We're almost at the halfway point of this year, and I want you to take a moment today and think about, what is happening to you working, learning and living at your best. Is work meaning that you're not really living? Is living meaning you're not really working? Is your inability to learn new stuff leaving you feeling stuck because you're overwhelmed with everything else? You haven't got the headspace to take on any new thinking, any more change. Just sort of check in with yourself today if that's the case. Those of you know that over the last couple of weeks, I've been really struggling, not feeling quite myself. And so I have given in and accepted help. Now, this might sound a bit weird to you, but I've actually ordered some vitamin tablets and some supplements, partly because I read the book by Andrea Marsh, which is Understanding Your Menopause. And I've also started work with a lady called Anna about Inside Out, and she talks about vitamins. And I've been told several times about people about vitamins. So I was just listening to myself and trying to work out, what is it? Why was I not taking the tablets? Why did I not want it? And this is why Manager Critic is so important. This Manager Critic is not about ignoring it. It's about listening to it and finding out, where is that thought coming from? What's the origin of, what's the source? So here was the interesting thing about vitamin tablets. One, I had a story or a belief that I had been, not to take. I don't really like taking tablets. So the fact that vitamins came in a white pill, my brain was associating that with like paracetamol or aspirin or, tablets or medication. And I didn't want to take tablets. And when I started to really think about, where did that come from? Somewhere along the lines, I didn't want to take medication because I didn't want to need help. I wanted to be able to do this myself. Now, I'm bringing this to you today because I have heard many of my clients that do this. They're really strong, really independent, really driven, really capable people. They get lots of stuff done. And because of that, when they do need help, it can be often quite challenging, because if they have help, they often don't feel like they've been independent. And so we get into this bind between, feeling, and so just thinking about that, what is independence for you? And I think what I've learned to understand is that independence is the ability to know that I can do it if I want to do it. But actually working interdependently with people means that I can work collaboratively with people. Now, if the reason why you need to do it might be, usually it comes down to a couple of things, and yours might be different. Please share. Good morning, Susie. We're just talking about independence and accepting help. You and I have had these conversations before, so it'd be great to hear your views. But listening to clients, one of the reasons we don't ask for help is because if somebody helps us, then we won't get the recognition for having achieved it. So there won't be that sort of feel-good factor that I did it. So some people, I've heard people say, it's worth doing it on your own and struggling. It's much better to struggle because you get a better sense of satisfaction when you achieve it, which is great. If you want to go through that learning process, you're going to do that for growth. But if you're purposefully putting yourself through this struggle because you think if you ask for help, you won't get the credit, that's much more to do with our sort of needing approval from people. It's not going to work. Another reason why people struggle to do it on their own is because of the time it takes to actually get somebody to do it as well as they would have liked. So that's, when you actually the process of asking for help is you've got to find somebody who is able to do it as well as you would have done it. If it's something you're really good at doing, but you just haven't got enough time to do the amount of it you need to do, then you have to find somebody that you can trust, that will do it as well as you. If it's something that you don't know how to do, then another reason why we don't ask for help is because then you have to admit publicly to somebody that you don't know something. And often that can bring back feelings of shame or embarrassment or, I've amount of times I've worked with clients who've really needed a cleaner and they really want a cleaner, but they won't get the help in because their house is such a mess they just can't deal with the shame of someone seeing it that way. So they're almost like they're trying to get on top of the cleaning themselves before they have a cleaner, but the cleaner will help them get on top of it. I've seen people who want to go to the gym, who want to get fit, but are talking about getting fit first or wanting to lose some weight before they go to the gym because they don't want to show up at these places and get the help because they have to lose the weight first. And I see that with me as well, with the work I do. People will say to me, oh, I'm in overwhelm, I've got too much going on. I need to get my head sorted and then I'll come and talk to you, Cheryl. And people don't get that when they come to me, that's what we do, is we sort out their head. I ask questions and help them to unpack it so they can start to look at the words, their value, the language they're using, the story they're telling, and find out what do they mean by what they say, and make sure they actually say what they mean, but more importantly, they're not being mean to themselves when they say it. But often people struggle for a long time without asking for help. And so my invitation for you today is about being really curious about what it is that stops you from asking for help, because it's absolutely fundamental to our ability to work, learn and live at our best. There is always going to be a finite amount of time. So even if we're super, super smart and we're super, super skilled and we're multi-flexible and multi-talented and we can put our hand to anything, and we love numbers and accounting and we love people and we love doing big planning and we like being in the detail. Even if you were multifaceted and you could do all of those all of the time, you will run out of time to physically do everything to a high standard, or you have to reduce how much you're trying to do. So you have two choices in life. You can reduce it, and I have to say I'm kind of working on that level at the moment myself, is thinking I want to simplify my life, not because I don't want to ask for help, but actually I just want to have less to manage. So you either have to reduce how much you're trying to do and how much you're trying to achieve, or if you're going to continue to run at that level and you're going to expand, you want to keep things growing, you may well need to be able to ask for help. And it's a gorgeous feeling when you can. I mean, I didn't actually ask for help, but I got help volunteered this week when my daughter very kindly did the garden. And I'm still struggling with not paying her. I keep wanting to pay her. But accepting her help means I look out on my garden and it's absolutely gorgeous. And I hadn't realised that how much it was bothering me. Maybe I did. Maybe she heard me moaning and I just wasn't listening to my complaining. Maybe that's what was going on. Let's just check in with Susie. I have difficulty asking for help if it's due to time and not experience, as I know I want something done a particular way and struggling to let go of the control. So given that, when you know that's the experience, what would you like to have happen? I'd love to hear what you'll say, Susie. And I'm just going to share with you what I've heard with other people, is that there's two things that can happen. If you know that the thing that you want to ask people to do is something you're really good at and you want it at a certain level, first of all, it's really worthwhile you mapping out the process and actually documenting the process, and actually then going through this is what I want done, and here's the evidence. This is what I'll actually hear and see if it was being done just the way I'd like it to be. So if you get really clear what the process is for yourself, two things will happen. One, you may well streamline your system and your processes, and therefore you become much more efficient and effective doing it. So you get some time back. Because what can happen when we're doing stuff that's subconsciously in our mind and we're unconsciously doing it and we're just really good at doing it, is that often we can repeat things over and over. We spend a lot of time thinking and reminding ourselves, what's the next thing I've got to do? What's the next thing I've got to do? And then what happens? So we spend a lot of time having to recall memories, recall information. Whereas actually, if it's documented and we're just going, right, step one, do this, step two, step three, then actually it takes a lot of cognitive load off of your own brain. And so therefore you save time because of the energy that you're relinquishing and letting go of being used up, going through the process from having to recall from memories on other things that are going on. So the first thing to do would be to write out the process that you'd like to have happen. The next thing is finding somebody who and having conversations with people where I think the number one thing is you have to know that you can give and receive feedback to those people, because if you have got it you want it a certain way, then you have to be able to give, receive and invite feedback. And it is important that you find somebody who you trust that you can give and receive that feedback. Now, what you don't want to end up doing is micromanaging somebody, because if you choose somebody who's really good at something What I'd like to think happens when you get it right is that if you've got someone who loves doing the same thing you do it, they may come at it from a different approach. They may even do that process, they might do in a different order. But if you're very clear what the outcome is, it's got to be this, this, and this, and you know what the evidence will be. Often when you partner with somebody, they bring something to the party that you will never have had. So not only do you, so if you don't come in just going, I want it done this way, you can either sort of like have a prescription and go, this is what you want to do. And you find people that are happy just to follow your process, or you find somebody who is producing something at that level and you don't worry about whether or not they follow your process. It's just about the end result. Do they get what you want at the end? And either way you can work, but be really clear what you need from people before you start. Because otherwise what happens is when people feel micromanaged, they don't feel trusted, they don't feel empowered. And we also, as the individual who's needing the help, we miss out on all that gorgeousness of how differently other people work and what they could bring to the party that we just didn't have when we worked on our own. So just sometimes the process is really hard to map as it's about passion and experience. I'm finding the right images for a post. I can write down the type of image, but it's a gut feeling whether an image is exactly what I want. So, well, you and I have done this because we have to do this with me and you. So I will say, you know, that using clean language is one way. So we can always do this on your sessions, is that clean language is a great thing. But also me individually as a person, I tend to be someone that can see the order that things happen. And one of the things is that being a creative, as you are, Susie, and most brains do as well, we're seeing things and hearing things and smelling and tasting things in 3 dimensions. So information is floating around, and we've all got our own metaphor and our own model for how we recall information. So you've got some kind of process that's going on where you're making a decision of what you want, and based on all your past experiences, it's intuitively going to be there. But that intuition, that there is rules, there are criteria. It's not happening by mistake. That gut, that intuition is based on years and years of patterns. So there will be a set of basic criteria and basic rules. A bit like you said to me the other day, you were in the Facebook Academy, you said, Cheryl's things tend to be, outdoors, they're with nature, it will tend to be women doing this. And so you will have some criteria. You said for you, for example, with animals, but it won't be animals doing this, but it would be animals doing this. So if you want people to create stuff for you, it is about you, whether it's, for me, I'm outsourcing blogs. You have to be clear about what it is you want the person to do first and foremost. If you get very clear about your own process, then 2 things can also happen. I always do 2 things. I don't know why I say 2. That's a pattern of mine. It's just a habit. One, when you map the process out, what you might find is that that you have times where you realize you don't get it right. And therefore, when the other person doesn't get it right, you'll have more compassion with them. So recognizing, for example, that you might choose an image, do it, and you go, oh, something's not quite right about that. So that image is giving you feedback. And then you work out what's not working, and then you make a decision to go forward. If you're working with creative people, my understanding will be is they'll give it to you, and when you see it, you'll know, and because you and I do this all the time, you'll see it and you'll go, it doesn't work. As long as you can then work out why it's not working and give that feedback to them, over time that relationship builds and they start to get the rules, they start to understand the criteria that is going to make it work for you. And I think that's where most people go wrong when it comes to accepting help or even asking for help, is that they accept that because it's been quite a fearful thing to do in the first place, they want it to instantly work. They want instant feedback that this was the right thing to do. Whereas actually, it's often an iterative process that builds over time, and people have to learn that we're not going to instantly be able to tune into each other. We might have a commitment that we just get on with each other. We're aligned. We've got core values. We want to make the relationship work. That's the first point. Then we'll work on if it was just the way we'd like it to be. And then we have to go on this journey together to go and be able to keep giving feedback until we get it so it's actually working alongside each other. And too many people go into these things expecting, if they've paid money or they've hired somebody who's an expert in that field, they expect the person to instantly be able to do it correctly. But what people don't always understand is that your definition of correctly and versus their definition of correctly can be different, and therefore that takes communication. That takes you say something, you do something, you get feedback, and you have to keep going through that cycle until the process of handing over and asking for help is actually working. So I hope that's useful today. We know what we could be talking about on your next call then, Susie. Have a great week this week. I look forward to seeing you on Feedback Friday. But please tell me, what's your critic saying right now? What's happening for you in your world? I'd love to know. And if you would like to know more about asking for help, then please get in touch. I've got a couple of Power Hour sessions free this week. You're very welcome to book. Speak to you soon.